So last night was the largest independent wrestling show in the history of the country since like the territorial days, and that was All In, which is a collaborative effort, a show that was put together by the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, and Kenny Omega, which can be called the Bullet Club or being the Elite or really whatever you want to call them, but they put the show together last night, biggest indie show ever. The last time there was a show in North America that drew 10,000 people that was not WWE was a WCW show in 1999-2000. That was the last time that happened. The closest that we've come is, I believe, TNA, which really, back when they were called TNA, which really is not an independent company, but they are a non-WWE company. I think they drew like 8,000 people in Canada, and I know they did about 6,000, 5,000 size level crowds, but this is a show, this all-in show, that was pretty much done entirely through word of mouth and the internet. These guys don't really have TV. I mean, yeah, you have a little bit of promotion on the Ring of Honor television and things like that, but there really is no like all-in promotion. You know what I'm saying? They don't have a regular TV show. So if you're watching this show and you're not familiar with Being the Elite and some of these wrestlers, like, you know, some of the guys from Ring of Honor and some of the guys from TNA or Impact, whatever, and New Japan, you might get lost. I mean, you might very well get lost in these storylines. It could happen. Because this show was structured pretty much as a hardcore fans wrestling show. It really was like a hybrid, because you had pretty much representatives. Well, I don't know why I keep saying pretty much, but you had representatives from Ring of Honor, from Impact, from New Japan, from Mexico. I mean, it really was this really well put together, like, we are not WWE, essentially, is what the show was. And that's fine. We need things like this in the wrestling business. And the fact that this show sold so well, based entirely, 10,000 tickets, based entirely on YouTube and word of mouth, I mean, what a crazy world we live in. You would have never thought this would have happened, 10 years ago. And it did. And you had, the NWA title was on the line, the Ring of Honor title was on the line. Like, you had title matches, you had guys from different companies working together. And it was several different companies, not just like two. And this show being a success is actually a big deal. This is not the first time that something like this has happened. There was a very short-lived project with several different promoters way back in the day, in the late 80s, early 90s, called Pro Wrestling USA. Now, I don't have time to get into that story right now. You can always look it up, or maybe I'll do a separate video on it someday. But it was basically a bunch of different promotions coming together to put together like these big shows to compete with Vince, to compete with WWE. Now, I don't think All In is trying to compete. They just want to put on a good show. And there's enough of an audience now who loves the Young Bucks, who loves the Bullet Club and Kenny Omega, that they're going to see this show. And I don't even know what the pay-per-view buys are, but the show financially has been a complete and utter success in every way. I mean, 10,000 seats, that's unheard of. There are episodes of Monday Night Raw that can't even pull 10,000 people, and they did it. And it's one of those things where All In felt like a big thing. You had the whole weekend festivities, the convention and all that. So it's kind of like another WrestleMania, but on the independent level. And it's one of those things where, because of that, doing an all-in promotion like every week or every month or whatever is just not going to work out the same way. But if they do these once a year, maybe twice a year, maybe 4 times a year, like a quarterly pay-per-view, I could see it happening. I totally could see it happening because they have the talent. But of course, what's going to end up happening is WWE is going to want to come in there and take some of those talents as the years go by. If they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Because the bigger a company gets, the more spotlight gets put on them, the more WWE is going to want to take that talent because they want to use the best wrestlers they can. There's a lot of great wrestlers in All In. So, my thoughts on the show. It was a good show, not a great show, okay? It was good, not great. The first half of the show did kind of drag a little bit. It got really, really good right around the Jay Lethal versus Flip Gordon title match. That's when things got really good. Before that, though, there was an NWA title match between Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis. Now, this was for the NWA title, which is the belt that, the Dusty Rhodes, Cody Rhodes' dad had. And it was a good story in the match, but the match itself was kind of lacking something. There was a really weird spot where they go on the outside, and I don't know if Cody was trying to blade himself or what, but DDP comes down and does a diamond cutter on Daivari, which was kind of cool because Daivari and him have like a disagreement, and it just felt like they were stalling for time. But the story of the match was that Cody got busted open and that Nick Aldis was all over his ass, just pounding him and pounding him and pounding him, and Cody's bleeding, you know, all messed up, and then finally Cody wins by reversing this roll up. He sits down on sunset flip, reverse, sits down on it, gets a 3 count, you know, old school finish. It was good. Could have been better, but it was fine. Also, they had Chris Daniels against Stephen Amell. Stephen Amell is, of course, the guy who plays Arrow on the Arrow TV show. Hugely popular. I wonder how many tickets he sold. But Chris Daniels is one of the best wrestlers ever. Like, you know, one of the most experienced. He knows what he's doing in that ring. I've been following this dude for years. He's been on the independent since the mid-90s. A trainer. He was in the WWE feeder system. He was a Ring of Honor guy for years and years and years. Of course, TNA. You know, Christopher Daniels is a legitimate legend, you know, in my opinion, in my eyes. And this match it wasn't what I was expecting. There was no smoke and mirrors here. It was just a wrestling match. And Stephen Amell's only had like 3 matches. So even though the match was fine, it was very underwhelming. It kind of seemed like a waste of time. It was just like a match, and it just felt more like a training school practice like session than an actual match, in my opinion. And that's just my opinion. I didn't like it. Things got really good during Jay Lethal versus Flip Gordon. Flip Gordon won a battle royal earlier in the night. Jay Lethal is the Ring of Honor champion, so they had their match, and to me, this was the first really great match of the show. Now, earlier they had Joey Janela against Hangman Page in a Chicago street fight, and that was good as far as just spectacular with some crazy. There was a crazy power bomb on the like aisleway there through 2 tables. There was a lot of crazy stuff, but the match itself, I don't think ever really picked up. It didn't really do it for me. I thought it was good, don't get me wrong, but it definitely wasn't what I was expecting. But anyways, they had Joey Ryan come back, and I know some people were probably totally confused when they saw like there was these men dressed like penises. Then Joey Ryan comes out. So again, this show, you gotta understand, is made for people who are super hardcore. You don't have to know everything, but it helps to know Joey Ryan's gimmick. It helps to know Flip Gordon. It helps to know Jay Lethal. He came out as Black Machismo, by the way, which was awesome. He came out with Lanny Poffo as, you know, Black Machismo. That was great. The Randy Savage gimmick. Again, if you didn't watch TNA during that time, you might not know what we're talking about. So again, this show just has a lot of references for the hardcore fan, and that's why it was done. I mean, that's why the show even exists to begin with. But either way, the match was good. I thought it was interesting. You know, I thought it was great, actually. I'm not even going to say that. Lethal Injection, 1, 2, 3. Then Bully Ray came out and beat both of them up because earlier he was in the Battle Royal. He thought he was going to win, but he didn't win. Then Bully Ray got into a little scuffle with Lanny Poffo, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then Colt Cabana came out and saved them. So Colt Cabana, of course, being the Chicago homegrown guy. You know, this is in Chicago, so easy pop there. Then we had Kenny Omega against Penta El Zero. Now, Penta El Zero, Pentagon, he's made a big deal in Impact. You know, he was the champion, obviously, you know, huge star down in Mexico. And so this is kind of a dream match. You know, you got a New Japan versus Impact Wrestling, you know, match here. International, you know, you get the Canadian Kenny Omega, the Mexican Pentagon. Really enjoyed this match. I love how the story of the match was that Penta kept countering the One-Winged Angel over and over and over again until finally, after several V-triggers, Omega hit him with the One-Winged Angel for the win. It was a good match. It was a very simple match. It wasn't like Tokyo Dome level, but it was still really good. Jericho, this popped me. This was the biggest pop of the night for me anyways. So Jericho, here's what happens. The lights go out, and I already knew. I knew it had to be Jericho. Lights come back on, and they think that it's Pentagon in the ring attacking, you know, Omega. But it's not Pentagon. He takes his mask off, and it's Chris Jericho. Huge pop. He did the code breaker on Omega, and he challenged him to a match on the Jericho Cruise. So Jericho really wants that Jericho Cruise to sell. So they're going to be doing a match on the cruise between Jericho and Kenny Omega. That's freaking awesome, if you ask me. I don't have tickets to that cruise, but sounds great. And of course, their match they had at the Tokyo Dome earlier this year was freaking phenomenal. I mean, that was like the resurrection of Chris Jericho. Then we had Kazuchika Okada against Marty Scurll. I guess if you don't count New Japan, this is Okada's like pay-per-view debut, even though I think he was on a TNA show. I think he was on an Impact show like 10 years ago. I have to go back and look. I remember he was Okado, but I don't remember if he ever did a pay-per-view. But anyways, Scurll is awesome. Marty Scurll is awesome. I mean, that's just obvious. Okada hit 2 Rainmakers. Good match. Again, I don't think it was Tokyo Dome level. I hate to say that because it seems so pretentious, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I don't think it was as good as any of the stuff in the G1, but these guys damn near killed themselves for the damn G1. I think they realized the fans are coming here just to see Okada do his stuff. You know, the Rainmaker, the Dropkick. It was really one of those things, sort of like the Kobashi Samoa Joe match, where it was a great match back in 2005 for Ring of Honor, and the fans got to see all the big Kobashi spots, but it wasn't trying to be great, but it was great. I think they weren't, I don't know if they were really trying to be like a classic, but it wound up being a really good match. But Okada always tries, so I can't really say otherwise on that one. Then we had the main event, which is sure to be just crazy, high-flying, madness, which I knew they were going to put on last because, I mean, obviously it was promoted as the main event, but also you've got all these incredible wrestlers that are just super fast, super athletic, and the crowd would be burnt out to a crisp if they didn't close with this match. Young Bucks and Kota Ibushi against Rey Mysterio, Phoenix, and Bandido. Damn, dude, like just looking at those people, you know it's going to be crazy. And Ray, the old school, I mean, one of the guys that you could even credit as bringing high flying to the United States in the mid-90s, the lucha style, which he really wasn't the first one, but he definitely was one of the guys that was instrumental in getting that style over in the mid-90s and during the Monday Night War. You know, he's in there with these guys who have taken that style, Kota Ibushi, the Bucks, Phoenix, and really brought it into a modern era and added so many more spectacular, crazy moves to it that it's cool seeing like Ray in there with those guys. It's a good little mix of so whenever you see Liger in there with some of the modern Japanese guys, it just kind of makes me feel warm, that makes me feel good that that Liger's still in there with these guys who were all kind of inspired by him. You know what I'm saying? And there was a spot in the match where Kota Ibushi gets tagged in and then Ray gets tagged in. Ray, of course, dressed like Wolverine for this show. And the crowd just exploded because it was like, okay, we're seeing Kota Ibushi, one of the absolute best. I mean, this dude has been such an MVP all year for New Japan. I mean, really, he's always been good. I mean, I've seen this dude work, I think it was like in 08, I want to say. I think it was 08, 09. And 08, 09, or 07. It's been so long. But this dude has always been amazing. And here we go against Ray. And they just blew the roof off of this place. Oh, also earlier in the review, I mentioned the whole Bullet Club, Omega thing. They're called the Golden Elite. Being the Elite is the YouTube show. I don't know why my brain farted there. I know they're called the Golden Elite. But no, they came in here. And there had been reports that one of the Young Bucks was, sick and injured or whatever. I forget exactly what it was, but he did fine. He did fine here. This was great. It wasn't as long as I was expecting. It did not go too long, which I was happy about because I didn't want this main event to be dragged on to be a 45-minute match when it doesn't need to be. When you have these 6 guys going in there just doing crazy stuff, send the fans home happy with a lot of crazy stuff, and that's what we got here. And I enjoyed that. Now, overall, the first half of the show, like I said, was kind of dull. The second half of the show was really good. It was a good show. It was a good first effort. I want to kind of give you my overall thoughts on the show. First and foremost, the production was good, but it lacked in some areas. I felt like the lighting was great. The set was great. Everything looked like an actual professional wrestling show. It looked better than anything we've seen for a while. It actually kind of reminded me of those early, watching this show gave me vibes of the early 2000s, mid 2000s TNA. Like TNA from 02 to 06 when they were really trying to get these athletes over and it was really focused on the young talent. And you had, these shows where it was really wrestling focused, but you still had wackiness. That's kind of what this felt like in a way. It really felt that way. But to me, the one thing that I think is a big con on this show is the commentary. I could not stand the commentary. So I like Don Callis, okay? I like Don Callis. But the problem is that if you're going to do commentary, you have to pick a road. You can either do a good, serious, good, solid commentary, or you can be wacky and be over the top and try and get yourself over like Vampiro did in the AAA show last week. And I like both. Again, I like Vamp, so what am I going to say on that? But I was not a fan of the commentary of this show. I did not like the way they were commentating it. I couldn't tell who was who. Some of the cliche lines they used were just really, really just annoying to me. I don't know why they didn't get Jim Ross to do it. I know Jim Ross does a lot of stuff for New Japan, or he has in the past. I don't know why he didn't just do it, or somebody else. I know they couldn't get Morrow because he's in WWE. I don't think Jim Ross is officially contracted to WWE, but maybe Vince told him not to do it. I don't know. Who knows? But the point is that the commentary was a bit weak, and also the overall sound of the show sounded good. It didn't sound great, though. And when you watch a show like this, it really makes you appreciate how amazing Kerwin Stifles is over at WWE. Because, look, while the production here was good, you're just not going to top on WWE. Everything feels natural with WWE. The commentary is trash there too sometimes, but the way things look, the lighting, everything's so smooth, especially for WrestleMania. If you've never been to a WrestleMania before, you've got to go just to see how they do their lighting, their production. It's such a great, great, great show. And this was All In's first pay-per-view. So obviously, when you have the Golden Elite putting on their first show, you're going to have some hiccups. So I'm not coming down on them for it, but it just kind of goes to show, like, you know, how difficult it is to put on a perfectly produced show. And this was as good as it was going to get for what it was. I mean, it really was good. And for a first show, these guys have nothing to be ashamed of at all. And I do hope that we have another All In next year. I didn't get to go this year because tickets were gone very fast, but I did want to go. And I am hoping that for next year, I can get tickets faster. Maybe they have a bigger building, maybe. I don't know. But the building looked great. That's one thing I will say, too. The lighting and the production, you know, the audio was a little wonky, okay? But the production, the building looked incredible. Like, it looked huge. 10,000 people is a lot of people for an indie show. That is a lot of people. It looked like a legit WWE pay-per-view as far as how the building looked when it was actually, like, you know, stacked. And I liked that. And it was great. I mean, it was great, and I'm so happy for them that they were able to do this, and I'm so happy that there are other companies coming up now being able to sustainably draw a crowd without needing WWE, and that's great. I mean, it means so much for the business of wrestling to be given these different options. It really does. And I love that it's a hybrid show. And it was a good show. Again, not a knockout show, not a New Japan level show, or even like a Ring of Honor like top 10 show. It's, you know, or anything like that. You can't compare it to that. But it was a good, solid show. And honestly, I feel like a lot of the reasons as to why the first half was what it was is because they kind of knew not to blow their load too early and let the Young Bucks and Okada and these guys, you know, really work later on in the show, and Kota Ibushi, and really do the craziness. So I think they might have toned it down purposely. But either way, I enjoyed watching it. 4 hours was a bit too long. You could have shaved that down, but I did enjoy watching it, and it was fun, especially the second half. So if you're going to watch this show, the second half, start with Lethal and Scroll, and then just go from there. And everything from there up was good. Really, really good. Anyways, that's it. What did you think about All In? Did you watch it? Do you care? If you didn't watch it, I do recommend checking out, you know, Being the Elite, and check out, you know, New Japan, obviously. That's the top company, you know, outside of WWE. Of course, I'm going to have everybody check out as much wrestling as possible. If you like Ring of Honor, Impact. Look, I know a lot of people stopped watching TNA, myself included. Impact, I know it's just hard to keep up with, but it has gotten a lot better. And it's just too bad that they kind of killed themselves before it could get better, but it has gotten a lot better. So anyways, that's it. I'll talk to y'all soon. Have a nice day.